Hey guys, Matty here from Exponential Performance Coaching. No doubt you've heard that if you perform high intensity interval training, you can get same or similar benefits as doing traditional endurance training. And today I just want to take a look at how this can actually happen and why it actually happens. So let's take a look and start down the bottom here. Let's have a look at the adaptations that occur to improve endurance performance. Physiologically, what happens is our muscle fibers become more like type 1 slow twitch fibers. So everybody has a range of different muscle fibers in their body, whether it be type 1 slow twitch all the way to type 2B, which are our fast twitch muscle fibers. Some people naturally have more of a distribution than others, but we all have some sort. With endurance training, more fibers become like type 1, our slow twitch. The second thing that really improves endurance performance is your mitochondrial density. So this is the size and the number of the mitochondria you have in your muscles. Now mitochondria are simply the little powerhouses in our muscle that produce energy. So they take carbohydrate and fat and change that into ATP, which is what we require for movement. So the more mitochondria we have, the better we go. The next thing is our fat oxidative capacity. If we can improve our rate and our ability to oxidize fat, we then become better at endurance. Being able to metabolize fat at a higher intensity is one of the adaptations that happens with endurance. So the more fat you can burn, the better. And finally is the increase in GLUT4. Now GLUT4 is a little transporter in the muscle cell that takes glucose or sugar from our blood into our muscles and then stores it as glycogen. The more GLUT4 we have, the better we're able to store glycogen and then improve our endurance performance. So those are the physiological adaptations that happen. Now, all of these things are stimulated or signaled by this one little signaler called PGC1 alpha. And you can think of this guy as a bit of a light switch. If we flick PGC1 alpha on, it stimulates your genes, your DNA, to produce these things. The more often you flick that light switch on, the more often these things are produced. And we can do that through training. Let's have a look at traditional endurance training to start with. So the example I've given here is 60 minutes at 65% VO2 max, and the reason I've given that example is because that's often the exercise session that's used in the research around this topic. Okay, but obviously there's a lot of different endurance type exercise out there. So if I was to go exercise for 60 minutes at 65% VO2 max, I'd have these repeated contraction of my muscles. So if I was running, my legs, my quads would be repeatedly contracting as I took steps. What would happen is the calcium in my body, there'd be an upregulation of calcium and there'd be more calcium floating around in my body, because calcium is one of the key things that happens for muscle contractions. So I won't go too much into the physiology of it all, but calcium is a critical component of muscle contractions. The more you contract your muscles, the more calcium that is released and builds up in your body and is circulating around in the blood. This here goes on to stimulate CAMK. Now, I won't go too much more into it, but it's just another aspect of the cascade that happens when you do endurance exercise. And as this builds up, it signals and flicks the light switch that is PGC1 alpha. PGC1 alpha goes and tells your genetic material, your DNA, your genes, to go and produce these things so that you become better at endurance. Now the really interesting thing is we used to think that this only occurred through this type of training. But more and more recently we've been finding out that it also occurs with high intensity interval training. So for this example, again, one that's around in the research a lot, 6, 30-second maximal sprint with 4.5 minutes of recovery. So very much sprint-like training. And what happens is when you do this sort of 30-second maximal efforts, there's a very high energy muscle contractions happening. And what this does is it takes ATP and converts it into AMP. And what happens is we get a lot of AMPK. Again, we'll just trust me on this one, or if you want more, go look it up. But we get a lot of build-up of AMPK, which again goes and flicks the light switch of PGC1 alpha, which goes and produces these endurance adaptations. So in a nutshell, this is what endurance versus the high intensity interval training is all about. Getting the same adaptations but through two very different pathways. It's kind of like the old saying, there's more than one way to skin a cat, and when it comes to improving our endurance performance, the same thing goes. Keep the questions coming so I can keep giving you the information to train harder, but also, most importantly, smarter.